One of Hollywood's most prolific actors is also perhaps its most unrecognizable. Despite this actor's impressive resume, working with directors such as Scorsese, Coppola, Kubrick, Spielberg, and Lucas, he has only ever had one speaking role in a short feature film that flopped in 2005. Since then, his career has been spiraling downward in a torrent of scandal and controversy. It's a story of broken dreams, trials, and redemption. This is Tim Luddy, the true Hollywood story.
It was definitely hard.
Tim Luddy was born in Connecticut in October of 1963. He was an all-around typical American boy. He loved sports, rock and roll, cars, and mowing his grandfather's lawn. He was always a hard worker, delivering papers from the moment he could ride a bike. It seemed that the possibilities were endless for Tim. Then, one day in the summer of 1969, a man in a suit and tie pulled up to the Luddy's driveway and handed young Tim a check for $3,500. The man told him it was his royalties for his role in a film. Tim was baffled. He did not remember being in any movie. When he asked his parents about it, they confessed to him that on a whim, they signed him up to be an extra in an Alfred Hitchcock film when he was just 4 months old. Tim's father moonlighted as a film critic and was well known in Newington critique circles. Young Tim knew then and there, seeing himself on that silver screen, that he wanted to be an actor. The next day, he took his $3,500 check, minus Tim Sr.'s 45% finder's fee, and moved out to Los Angeles, California. He would soon find that getting an acting gig was not as easy as it seemed. Tim had some issues to overcome. He was not comfortable speaking in front of crowds of people. This made it very difficult for him to memorize lines, let alone deliver them believably. He continued to be frustrated by failed audition after audition until a young producer approached him.
When I saw Tim's audition, he was clearly nervous. He flubbed all of his lines, but he also had the look of the American everyman. I approached him afterwards and I said, "Have you ever considered working as an extra?" He didn't know what I was talking about. I was working on a small project based on an English children's book, and I thought he would look great in the background of a few scenes. I offered him the part. He accepted right there.
Tim began to get steady work as an extra on as many projects as he could. While he was never cast as a leading man, never featured on a poster, never invited to be on Hollywood squares, he was living his dream of being an actor.
It was like the success story no one had ever heard of. Tim would take roles as an extra no one else wanted in films that would turn out to be some of the most iconic of cinema history.
While he was making it big in Hollywood, Tim missed his family back home. During Christmas in 1985, he traveled home to visit his parents and 2 sisters. One of his sisters brought her friend, Carrie Larson, a successful musical theater singer, to Christmas dinner. Tim found Carrie's voice and sense of humor enchanting, and they soon began a relationship. Carrie, impressed with Tim's ability to stand perfectly still and silent in the background of film scenes, decided to nurture his dreams. She moved out with him to LA in 1987. Soon, they were married and living in a small house in Beverly Hills. Tim continued to thrive in Hollywood, continuously getting the extras parts that everyone wanted. In 1989, their son, Sam, was born. In 1992 came Maggie, and finally Emma in 1996. Tim and Carrie most certainly were living the American dream. But things would not always be this way, as we'll see when True Hollywood Story returns. The 1990s were a time of prosperity for the Luddy family. Tim was consistently getting work as an extra and was becoming more well-known in Hollywood circles for his amazing abilities to not draw attention to himself. But he was growing tired of being in the background. For a while, he was able to use the audience of his family as an outlet for his lust for the limelight.
He just started to sing randomly, dance throughout the house, and just in general be weird. He wouldn't ask us to do something, he would sing it. He started making jokes about everything, trying to get us to laugh all the time, but to be honest, most of them were pretty corny.
Tim's performances at home soon weren't enough. He began acting out on set, usually during completely inappropriate times. He was fired from the set of Gladiator after consistently laughing during all Joaquin Phoenix's scenes. Soon, casting directors stopped returning his calls.
After the whole Gladiator thing, nobody wanted to hire Tim Luddy. Nobody wants to hire an extra that's going to draw attention to themselves.
Tim took a hiatus from acting in 2002. He decided it was time to focus on his family rather than acting. He took them to sports practices, encouraged their artistic and spiritual growth, and was overall a great dad. However, Tim always felt that need to be in front of the camera again, and in 2005, he had an opportunity. We'll find out what that was when True Hollywood Story returns. Tim's son, Sam, inspired by his father's work in film, started up a small production company with his friend Zach Ray. In 2005, they began production on their first major project, The Matrix Director's Edition. Written by Ray and starring the pair, the film sought to offer a revisionist take on the iconic film of 6 years before. Sam, in need of actors, approached Tim about a small speaking role. Tim, while eager to act again, was still apprehensive. Tim spent weeks preparing for his part despite only having one line. When it came time to shoot the scene, it did not go well.
It was a frustrating shoot, for sure. It was just consistent laughing or snickering, just plain flubbing the line. I mean, it was one line, you know, it was just unprofessional.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, embarrassing.
Yeah, that's a better word for sure.
You know, Ron Howard was there in the audience watching. I think Spielberg was there, so somebody said...
I heard his name. The potential to have Steven Spielberg watching your first major big budget production.
Right.
You know, we were already tense. We were already just focused and concentrated on getting the shoot done. It was a simple shoot. You know, should have been done in like 4 or 5 takes. We were on like take 36 by the time that you got it right. And even then it was robotic, you know, it was forced. Clearly it was nepotism. You know, I'll be the first to admit, you know, it was my dad. I said, hey Dad, you know, you haven't acted for a few years, why don't you come on down, one line. Should have been simple. There's no way that he was going to get called by anybody after that. And I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
But, you know, I gave him as many opportunities as I could to succeed, and...
Tim, shamed in front of producers, studio executives, his fellow actors, and now his son, was broken. His dream of acting shattered. He went into seclusion, not venturing out of his house for months.
At one point, it was so bad that he just wanted me to push food to the slot of a door. And it wasn't normal. It's not healthy.
Tim, now alienated from Hollywood, his friends and family, seemed to be at rock bottom. But this wasn't the end of Tim's story. We'll find out what happens next when True Hollywood Story returns. On a cold February morning in 2006, Tim emerged from his bedroom with a poise and confidence his family hadn't seen in years.
When he finally came out of his bedroom that morning, I knew that something had changed. He was confident. He was at peace.
Tim emerged from his room with a new purpose, to become a pastor, to spread the gospel of Jesus and live a life according to his plan.
Tim has always been a believer in Christ despite his dedication to acting. Actually, I think he was always an extra because he didn't want to use the profanity or the offensive language that other actors were using. And during his time of self-imposed isolation, he was very close with the Lord.
Tim, after a rigorous selection process, decided to study for his degree at the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary in Hamilton, Massachusetts. Tim and his family made the move across the country in 2006.
It was definitely hard leaving LA, all our friends and everything, but I knew it was what my dad needed. And honestly, if he was dedicating all his energy to his studies, then he wouldn't have time for all his songs and dances, and that just makes it all worth it.
Tim, highly adept at Christianity, was able to graduate in just 1 year. Carrie, inspired by her husband's midlife crisis, decided to have one of her own. The family stayed an additional 2 years so Carrie could earn a master's degree in family counseling. Now, in 2013, Tim and his family are living in Rochester, where he is the pastor of his own church. Sam has graduated college and is about to start a family of his own. Maggie is in college, enjoying her studies and visiting when she can. Emma, now 17, is looking at colleges as she finishes up high school. Tim has not acted since his ill-fated speaking role in The Matrix Director's Edition. Will he return to the big screen? Only time will tell. While Tim is no longer in Hollywood, his legend still lives on among producers and directors. You won't see his name on the Walk of Fame. His picture doesn't adorn the walls of the local eateries, but in the eyes of his family and God, he's the biggest star they know. This was Tim Luddy, the True Hollywood Story.